good. Yeah, is the practicum portion just as structured as the coursework? Yeah, will the practicum always take 3/4, or is there any opportunity to complete in a shorter time frame? At this point, the layout of our program is that your practicum will take 3/4. And the reason why is because we want you to get as much experience as you can during that opportunity. There's nothing like clinical experience working shoulder to shoulder with another IBCLC, and we're offering you through to basically 2.5 terms of that. So there's no reason not to take advantage of all of it. So in a Pathway 2 program, it's often more structured. So it's not like, oh, I want to do it this way, I want to do it that term. That's what the other pathways are for. If you want something that's much more flexible and you need that based on your situation and family life and job situation, that's fine. And that's why we have those 3 pathways. In our Pathway 2 program, it is very structured, and we want you doing the full 2.5 terms of clinical experience, because that's going to prepare you really, really well for your future experiences as an IBCLC. Is that the question I was supposed to be addressing?
That's it.
Okay, good.
How about, I'm going to throw this next one out too, though. Once you are enrolled in the educational courses, is it mandatory that you continue one after another, or if you, or can you take some time off in between?
You can always take some time off. The thing you need to remember is things in this program, because it is structured in a certain way, have to be done in a certain order. So certain courses are only offered at certain terms. So, you know, we always have students who have lives and have, you know, a change in their family situation, a change in their work situation, and they may have to stop and not be able to take a full 3-course series. Okay, then they're going to come back next year and they can finish that up. So I think it's important to understand that, you know, we can allow students to do that. It's just that you just can't say, oh, I'm going to take spring term off and I'm going to pick up in fall term. Oh, that course that you missed in spring term isn't offered until the next spring. So you want to plan it out and think about it that way.
I have a question. I know that you mentioned in the last meeting we had last week, the difference between Pathway 2, and Pathway 3 is the clinical hours, correct? Pathway 3 is 500, and I believe Pathway 2 is 300. But, and also the difference is the school, right? The classes? Or no, it's the same thing, you have to do the same classes?
Well, Dixie, one difference be that our Pathway 2 classes are university level, and Pathway 3 can also be continuing education. So it may feel a little more that you can, it doesn't follow in, you know, quarters. You could enroll at various sites to get those done.
So yeah, so Lupita, the way to think about it is there's 4 steps in the certification process. You have to be a health professional or have completed your health sciences education, right? The second step is your lactation education. And if you are planning to use Pathway 1 or 3 for your clinical experience, that lactation education could be taken through an organization that offers continuing education classes.
Oh, I see.
Okay. In Pathway 2, all your classes must be college credit classes, right? So your lactation education, your clinical experience. But if you're getting your clinical experience through Pathway 1 or 3, you could take other courses that are continuing education courses instead for that 95 hours of lactation education you have to do.
Okay.
And I know all of this sounds a little confusing. So for any of you that feel like, oh, I have no idea what she's talking about, then it's great to schedule an advising session. If somebody wants to grab the link to advising and plug it into the chat, that would be great.
Yes, I need to.
Yeah, so no, you have some more questions. Yeah, what other questions do you have?
Oh, no, it's just that I'm trying to do my other science classes through my community college because it's much cheaper. Mm-hmm. And being a single mom was like, I had to find ways where I could save a little bit more money. Mm-hmm. And then go into the program. Mm-hmm. But I'm just kind of I talked to my counselor, so she said, you know what, you need to talk to them to see if they're compatible. So that's my only thing. I just, hopefully after this, or once you put the link, I would like to talk to you guys one-on-one and see if what classes are compatible, because I don't want to take classes that they're not, you know.
And that's exactly what we can help you with in advising. We can find out where you're planning to take your courses, and we can give you a list of courses that, based upon our past experience with students, are most likely to meet the requirements, and we know are going to meet our prerequisite requirements. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Great. And Michelle has plugged in the advising link right there, so you can go there and schedule advising if any of you are interested in that.
Hi, Dixie. I have a question. So I'm looking at the list of classes and I'm checking. So there's like the bottom half of the sheet. It looks like that one.
Yeah.
It's like the basic life support, medical terminology, all those classes need to be completed before we apply for Pathway 2. Is that correct?
Well, ideally, that is the case. We give people until, you know, if people are accepted into the program and they're still completing those have to be completed before you can be placed in a clinical setting, right? And so that's so if you don't have them done, it could delay your placement into your clinical setting. So while we would allow you to go ahead and apply, if you haven't completed those additional prerequisites, you need to get them done, and you need to get them done soon. Yeah.
Okay. And I can just take the ones that are on the LER class. Okay, great. Thank you.
Those can be continuing ed classes, so that's perfectly fine. So does somebody else want to take this other question in the chat from Nadesh? If contract hasn't been established with clinical sites in my area by the time fall session starts, what are my options? Michelle, you want to grab that?
Yes, I'll.
I can talk to Michelle if you'd like.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. How about I'll start, and then Rebecca, you can carry on. So, how do I pronounce your name again? Nadesh.
Nadesh.
Nadesh. So sometimes we're able to get things organized quickly, and you're able to start with the cohort, you know, right on time. But sometimes the process itself takes longer, or we run into roadblocks. Like we get so far with an organization and then they decide they're not taking students that term. So Rebecca is going to be able to tell you about what happened in her situation, but you could have the choice to double up later, or you could decide, you know what, I'm just going to wait till things are easy peasy and I'll join the cohort next year. I would say those are the two obvious options. But Rebecca, do you want to say a little bit about what happened in your case?
Sure. So so I had a site lined up that we're working the contract negotiations, and then right about the time the summer class was going to start, found out that there was going to be no agreement. So I had to sort of go back to square one with finding local sites, and did find a couple relatively quickly that were at least open to having students, and then passed that information to Michelle, and she started working that. But it did take all the fall semester. So it's sort of like Michelle said, the options were, I just had a meeting with Michelle and Dixie and talked about options. And I did choose to go ahead and start with the cohort, and basically was able to do all the coursework. Had some opportunities that they set up to do virtual observations. So I could do some of the coursework, like the case studies throughout the term. And so, and I did do a couple hours at the site that I had to drive to, sort of as a one-time thing. I ended the fall term with only about 20 clinical hours. But then by the time that ended, term ended, I did have a site set up. So I started in January, and I did a lot of hours to sort of get caught up. So the option was given to me to basically, if I needed to, just extend out into the summer with my hours. But for me personally, I wanted to meet the IBCLE deadline, so for the exam, which is you have to have all the requirements met in order to apply to take the exam by May 24th. That's the deadline this year in order to take it in September. So I didn't want to have to wait until April of 23, which was sort of my motivation. And thankfully, I'm not working outside the home otherwise. So I was able to make it work to do a lot of hours and get caught up with the rest of my cohort. And we'll be able to get all the hours done in order to finish the PSU courses, as well as meet all the requirements to take the exam. So yay. But yeah, but the option was given to sort of delay a whole year, or like I said, to extend into the summer. So I feel like the faculty were very flexible, which was nice. But sort of my own personal reasons. But yeah, like I said, the coursework was all done. So at the end, so when I started in January, I didn't have to, other than completing the hours to make up that term, I took an incomplete for the fall term. And then once I got the hours caught up, then it was marked complete. I didn't have to like also be doing double the case studies and that was the paperwork part of it too. So that was nice.
Great, thank you for your flexibility and being able to address that question and hanging in there.
I have kind of a question about the getting the science classes done. So like Lupita, I'm taking some science classes at PCC to try to meet those requirements because I'm not a health professional. And it seems like, and Dixie, you posted in the chat that to enroll in the lactation education classes, that happens in September if you're not a degree seeking student. So with that said, then it seems like I'd be able to take the science classes, take those prerequisites through the spring term, which ends like mid-June, and still meet the requirements to apply to the lactation education classes in September. Is that correct?
So as long as you have completed your college credit courses, right, before the fall term starts, then if you've met those requirements, then you can go ahead and enroll in the fall term. So it's not that degree seeking or non-degree seeking makes a difference in when you can take the courses. Degree seeking students can enroll, at the beginning of any of the course series, just like non-degree seeking students can. But there are two different course series. There's a fall, winter, spring course series for the lactation ed courses, and then there's a compressed winter, spring course series. So enrollment happens at different times, depending upon which of those course series you're going to start in. All right, thanks, Lisa.
And it looks like in the chat, Jezre had a similar question about applying for the practicum degree versus non-degree seeking student. And so I don't know if you just wanted to continue your thought, Dixie, about.
Okay, let me just see if I missed that or not. Can you read? You want to go ahead and read the question?
Sure. If you are seeking a degree, you can apply for the practicum sooner than if you are a non-degree seeking student. Is that correct?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter whether you're degree seeking or non-degree seeking. They are just different categories of students. Everyone has to meet the same requirements in order to enroll in the lactation education courses, and then in order to apply for the practicum. I hope that answered your question, but speak up if it did not. Thank you. Great.
I have one question about placement. So I've been having trouble finding placements in where I live because I live rurally. And I may have found a potential in a hospital in a faraway land. So I'm just curious if that does end up working out. Is it possible to do all of your practicum work in a hospital, or do you need to have at least 1 quarter that's not in a hospital, that's inpatient?
That is a good question. Traditionally we began this program with the thought of that everybody needs a breadth of experience. However, we're realizing that when we're expanding our reach, sometimes there aren't as many options in, like you said, far off places, and we might have to create other opportunities that might not be you showing up and working in a specific clinic. Maybe we create some remote opportunity. Dixie and Rachel, what input would you have on that question?
Well, I would say that, and I would also like to hear, some of the students who have been through the program too. Maybe they have some thoughts on this too. I think in an ideal world, we'd be able to get everybody all kinds of experience in different places. Everybody would be going to a hospital, spending time in the NICU, going to a pediatric office, working with WIC, working in the milk bank. But that's just not practical. We can't do that for every student. I would say that if the choices are so limited, I would just kind of want to echo with what Michelle said, is that's, a hospital ends up being the home base, but then we can kind of help, get really creative and think of, think outside the box and ways we create experiences for you that are not just in the hospital. Whether that is, like Michelle's suggesting, some remote opportunities. There's always opportunities where you could find yourself working in unlikely places that might need lactation or breastfeeding support. I'll just give one example of one of our current students. She similarly lives in a rather remote area, and she was able to network with a private lactation consultant who actually runs a community open drop-in clinic. So it's just once a week, the space is opened. Families can just come, and there's nothing really structured. They just talk about breastfeeding things, get questions answered. And so that's one way where she's, able to, get some of that experience outside of the hospital that isn't, that before she didn't even know it existed until she started talking to people and she found out about these different opportunities. Yeah. So if that is your situation where you're very, very remote, we're gonna all put our heads together and see what we can do to come up with something. Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking, Morgan, is, let's say you decide to come to one of the weekends in Portland. Some of our current folks have been able to add on a day or two so that they can go to the milk bank, for example, or go observe at a pediatric clinic. So we can work on those kind of things.
Yeah. And you and I have talked, but I have a couple people down here that are like, oh, I couldn't commit to 2 days a week for 3 months, but you could come in a few times here and there. So that could be good supplementation.
Exactly.
So yeah, we can drop in about that more, but yeah, thank you.
I think that's an important thing to remember, is we're going to work with you and be as creative as we can to help you get the experience you need.
Okay, I have a question. Sorry. My questions to the students. I'm a single mom. I don't know if you guys were single parent, single mom. How did you guys do it? Did you guys have to get a job during the night? Because it seemed like the course is very hectic, right? It's very challenging. So I'm just trying to get some feedback. What did you guys do?
That sounds like a good question for a student or a graduate. Anybody up for tackling it?
I'll go. This is Leah.
Thank you.
I was super fortunate in that I'm married, and my husband he always has worked 2 jobs. And so I was fortunate and did not have to work during that time. And I think that's a huge limitation to programs like this, is thinking about the consideration of folks who have to work, because yay, capitalism.
Did you guys have say tutoring or little group sessions? Because I'm trying to figure out right now with all these information, how am I gonna do it? And I haven't started it yet.
I do think, during the program, finding your people in any, when I was in nursing school, it was the same, finding your people connecting, relying on each other for support, talking through ideas on how other people are structuring their lives, how they're coping with the challenges of trying to be in school and parent or work and all the things. And relying on your community too. You know, my kids were in school during the time when I did the program, and just relying on friends for pickups and moving kids from place to place. So
was it really? Is the program like every day, or is it like twice a week, or how's the program like?
The practicum was 2 days a week when I was on site. I was doing about like 2 8-hour days a week.
And we definitely have had people, Lupita, that work other jobs, but I think the more flexible your job is, the better, because if you're working 40 hours a week and then Monday through Friday, and now your practicum's on Thursday and Friday, something's got to give. But if you can arrange to do your hours differently, that's going to be able to be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
I saw a hand up.
Oh, that was me. I was just addressing Lupita, but I think her question was for the practicum, right? I was just gonna talk about the other part of the lactation education. It depends on, I was gonna say that it depends on the age of your children, basically. My situation was that I have a daughter who's older that could help with the younger. And in other cases, I just had to ask for help. Like, there's no way you can do it by yourself. My partner lives with me, but because of his work schedule, like, he was not available to help. So I would, rely on family, friends. Like, we have a group of moms, all the moms who have children like the same age or approximately the same age. Basically, we kind of rely on each other for picking up kids from school or sometimes. And honestly, this is something that I wanted to do so much that I started the lactation education, like the intensive course in January, the winter, spring. And I just told myself that this is something that was going to be very hard, but I had to do because I really wanted that. So I work 40 hours a week. And when I get home, that's all I do. I just sit and study and read until I fall asleep at 1 a.m. And that's how it's been since January. But it's very rewarding when it's something that you really want. If you really like it, it kind of gives you the energy, and the weeks goes very fast. I don't know yet how I'm going to do for practicum, but I know that I'll find a way.
Wow, that's inspiring.
It is.
Thank you. Gracias.
All right, you guys. Well, it's past 8:30, so I want to give anyone who needs to go the opportunity to scoot out of here. And I will share the results of the poll. Looks like some people might be up for traveling. So if you're for real about that, we do have some sites that are outside of our area. And, think of your old high school best friend. Where does she live? Would she host you? I mean, I'm being a little bit jokey, but it could work out. And then there's some people who've identified, like, hey, my family's from North Carolina. I'd go live there for a while, for a quarter in order to get my hours. Okay. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining us, both the prospective folks who are interested in lactation, as well as our students and our graduates and our partners. It's been a pleasure to gather you all in one virtual room and to hear what you have to say and inspire the next